Once upon a time, a group of powerful wizards who lived by the sea were faced with a problem. Their trading card game was too balanced, too fun, so they set out to build the power creepiest expansion ever. They designed Throne of Eldraine. Throne of Eldraine was a top-down magic set, which means it was designed around the flavor of Grimm's fairy tales and Arthurian myth, and the mechanics were built from there. But how was the set received? Today I will be grading this set on 4 metrics. Flavor. What stories do the cards tell? How is the art and flavor text? And how well does the set capture the source material? Mechanics. How good or exciting are the set's feature mechanics? How well does the set innovate? Limited environment. Is the format fun and replayable? Can you do well in any supported color combination? And are there more than just 10 decks to build? Constructed impact. Do the cards make a healthy impact on Standard, Modern, Legacy, Commander? Note, you do lose points for breaking a format, so... Each of these factors will be graded on a 1 to 5 scale. Note that while I'm trying to be fair and impartial, some of these categories are subjective, and I know that I will make some judgment calls that you may disagree with. That's perfectly fine. Feel free to let me know in the comments what you thought of Throne of Eldraine. Let's get to the grades. Throne of Eldraine is trying to evoke many of the classic fairy tales you probably grew up with. And it does a good job. Jack and the Beanstalk, Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, Snow White, Hansel and Gretel, Pinocchio, Robin Hood, Rapunzel, Frog Prince, Three Billy Goats Gruff, The Pied Piper, The Three Little Pigs, Goldilocks, Beauty and the Beast, The Gingerbread Man, Rumpelstiltskin, The Little Mermaid, and even Fantasia. On top of that, it captures the feel of Arthurian fantasy in such cards as Once and Future, The Lady of the Lake, Excalibur, Merlin, The Round Table, and of course, The King. They did a great job of hitting on a lot of the major tropes. I mean, they missed some obvious ones. There's no Chicken Little, no Goose Girl, no Firebird, but maybe I'm getting nitpicky. I should just let it go. But one-off designs can only take you so far. How is the world building? I don't feel like I understand Eldraine beyond the cards that I see. I know there are the 5 kingdoms, but beyond that, I'm not sure what's going on. But this is kind of a catch-22. If they spent more card space on unique world building, they would have had less space for the tropes that make this set fun, and then I'd be complaining about that. I also want to mention that this was the first set with showcase cards, and they are awesome. Each one takes a creature with an adventure and portrays it with an alternative art style that could be taken right out of a storybook, and the text box framing evokes that same feel. Upon seeing these for the first time, I was instantly eager for Theros Beyond Death and Ikoria, if only to see what showcases they brought to the table. Overall, I'm going to give Eldraine a 4 for flavor. Eldraine has 3 major mechanics. Adventure is the headliner here. This mechanic appears on creatures as an instant or sorcery that you can cast before playing the creature. Flavorfully, it symbolizes a journey that they go on before they return to fight for you. This mechanic is incredibly cool. It gave R&D the ability to design a creature and spell package that work well together without players having to draft both cards to make them work. But that's just one use for them. They can also be used to give players an early game play or late game play, as in Fae of Wishes or Goldilocks, or to flavorfully depict an entire story on one card, as in Lovestruck Beast or Goldilocks. Unfortunately, the mechanic was implemented poorly. R&D seemed to conveniently forget that each adventure card is 2 spells in 1, so their cost needs to reflect that. And many of these cards do, however, they pushed a couple of rares, and suddenly Bonecrusher Giant and Lovestruck Beast became standard staples that weren't dethroned for their entire standard tenure. Add a couple of payoffs for playing already broken cards, and you've paved the way for a banning. I would give this mechanic a 4 for ingenuity, but it loses a point for implementation. Next up is food. Although a less exciting mechanic, it was cool to see another take on a sacrificable token artifact. Because life gain is generally less valuable than card draw, food needed more payoffs than clues did, and Eldraine delivered. There are lots of fun ways to use your food tokens. This is the sort of mechanic that people enjoy, but aren't necessarily clamoring for a return. For that reason, it gets a 3. Eldraine's final mechanic was Adamant, which pays you off for spending 3 mana of the same color to play a spell, and therefore it encourages playing monocolored or mostly monocolored decks. Now, I love encouraging different deck types, but it was a bit forgettable. It's not exciting or flashy, and it didn't draw much focus, only appearing at lower rarities. However, I don't think Adamant gets quite enough credit. Between the heavy color requirement rares, the quad hybrid cycle at Uncommon, and Adamant, there were good incentives to play monocolor, and I saw more of those decks than I have in many years. So I'm going to give this the same grade as Historic from Dominaria. It did its job for Limited, but that's it. With 3s across the board, Eldraine's mechanical score is a 3. They worked well for the set, but we don't really need to see them again anytime soon. Personally, I had a lot of fun in this format. Most of the color pairs have a playable archetype, and like I said before, you also had the 5 monocolors as additional draft options. Beyond that, however, there aren't a lot of build-arounds. The main one that comes to mind is Folio of Fancies, which is such a powerhouse that I won a game of Limited in which it was the only spell that I played. Unfortunately, while this is a fun card to play, it can be miserable to play against, and it's not the only card. Revenge of Ravens was near unbeatable for most creature decks, as was Cat Soup. Protection is an outdated mechanic that can shut down entire decks for no good reason, and Wicked Wolf is a crash course in misery. And look, every format has some number of bomb rares and mythics, but when the number of them is as high as it is in Eldraine, and some of that misery even extends to uncommons, you can get tired of playing pretty quickly. Eldraine's format has a lot going for it, and there's a lot of fun decks to try. However, the potential for feels-bad moments means that I'm going to give this set a 3. As I've said before, I don't really follow competitive Magic. However, I unfortunately don't need to. With 8 cards banned 16 times across 6 formats, Throne of Eldraine is the most power-crept set we've ever seen in Magic. And this doesn't even cover the undercosted adventure creatures, or the mythic artifacts they thought they could push to extreme levels because they aren't colorless, or Questing Beast, which has 6 abilities across 9 lines of text on a good body. Even Commander, which didn't see any Eldraine bannings, is not better off for it existing. Yes, I enjoy Fabled Passage, and Faeburrow Elder, and Return of the Wild Speaker. However, in order to promote their new format, Brawl, WotC released 4 Eldraine companion decks featuring commanders like Chulane and Corvold, who are 3-colored, generically powerful, and serve as both enabler and payoff. This is exactly the type of commander that's unhealthy for the format, as they promote repetitive play and don't require you to build your deck around them. These decks also introduced Arcane Signet, a card almost on the level of Sol Ring and Command Tower, which are so powerful that they should be included in almost every commander deck. This is the type of card we need less of, because the more auto-includes there are, the more homogenized the format becomes. So any good that Eldraine has done for any format is vastly overshadowed by the damage it has done. For that reason, it gets a 1 for constructed impact. And the results are in. Averaging these scores, Throne of Eldraine finishes at an overall 2.75. I love tropey sets, and I really enjoyed the flavor and mechanics of Eldraine. However, the set tries too hard to make its cards relevant, which results in unfun gameplay, both in Limited and in Constructed. This means that it's a good concept executed poorly, and I could see it return to Eldraine scoring a lot higher in the future. If there's one thing you take from this set design when creating your own Magic sets, remember that you don't have to push a card to the point of breaking. Don't make 3-drop Planeswalkers that come in at 6 loyalty. Don't make cards that should be played in every possible commander deck. Don't throw a million extra abilities onto a card that doesn't need them. There is elegance in simplicity and in fulfilling one role rather than all of them. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you thought about Throne of Eldraine.